Hey, welcome into Restaurants in Pop Culture, presented by Squared Sodas with your host. I'm Jensen Cummings. That's MC32. What's going on, Chris?
What up? What's going down?
Oh man, this is it. This is the last
We made it.
episode of the Bear season 2. So we're gonna get into that, everybody. Today's episode is RIP11. We're gonna talk the best top 3 movie sandwiches of all time. There was a lot to choose from, so we got into that. The Bear season 2 finale, and there was a lot of restaurant chaos. And I want to talk about restaurant chaos a little bit in this one, and we'll dig into that as we kind of go. But man, I mean, we're doing this episode, and then we're gonna rate and review the whole season. But this is it, man.
Yeah.
What's the ride been like for you? How you been feeling about it?
Man, I've been feeling all kinds of stuff. Like I've been waiting for certain
Emotions, all
things
the
to
feelings.
yeah, like I've been waiting for certain things to get wrapped up and brought back around. Like there's just been cliffhanger after cliffhanger, and I've been waiting to see how the bear materializes restaurant wise, and what happens with all of this growth and all this character development that we're starting to see with these characters and how it like kind of blossoms a little bit. So yeah, it's been a lot of like hurry up and wait.
Especially because you and I committed to watching one
Yeah,
episode a week as we go through and rate each of these. That was hard.
very.
That was hard because look, straight up, I'm movies over TV all day, every day.
Hmm.
Like I want to watch 2 hours and then have closure,
Hmm.
right? And TV is, to your point, they have to give you cliffhangers because they have to get you to come back next
Right.
week. It's a completely different viewing dynamic.
Yeah.
Betsy, she loves television series. She loves the series. Me, I'm like, I want a movie. I wanted a limited series run. I just want to know that we're going to get there. I don't want you to leave me hanging all the time just for the sake of return viewership. So it was a challenge for sure. The Bear, I think, is worth it. It's so well
Hmm.
done. So
Yeah, I'm definitely a
100% into
binger,
that.
like movies or a binger. Like if I can sit through a whole series in one or two sittings because I hate cliffhangers too, but I also love like the lengthy storylines of a good series. But I'll
Mm.
sit there and I'll binge the shit out of a series. So like when a couple of the streaming platforms went back to the format of week to week, I was like, oh dude, come on, because like that was one of the worst things is because sometimes, especially if it's been a busy week, you forget what happened, and sometimes you might have to
Right,
go back to the previous episode or remember
right.
where you left off before you can watch the next one. Yeah.
I've had to do that with the Bear quite a few
Mm,
times to remember back because some of it's been so long. So I'm actually scrolling back through my notes. Here,
yeah.
I hope I have good notes on all these episodes because I don't remember who the hell this character or why they're doing this or what's the motivation. So they definitely stretched a lot of storylines there. So all right, good. I'm feeling exactly the same way. So we hope that this has been the same kind of emotional roller coaster ride for you because that's what this was all about. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's get into a little top 3 all time presented by Tender Belly and Shannon went in the bag a little bit for this one. He's got a good one. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Morning, everybody. This week on Best Server doing the best movie sandwich, and I'm going to go with Rodney Dangerfield. I hate small food when he rips apart the hors d'oeuvre table and makes a giant meatloaf sandwich. It's great.
Dude, Back to School for anybody that doesn't know the movie. And that is an iconic one, 100%. I had forgotten about that one until I saw that clip before we started recording here. He does. He takes a giant loaf of bread, cuts it in half. He hollows it out. He rips out some of the guts, which is like a pro move. So he's got that little
Hmm.
boat, and he's got these 3 stacks of hors d'oeuvre trays, and there's like meatballs, I think deviled eggs and some other stuff. He just throws it all on. There's a crowd behind him, and cuts it up and just puts it on a plate and walks off. Like
I haven't seen that one, so I'll have to check that out.
to school, classic Rodney Dangerfield. All right. We're talking top 3 best sandwiches of all time. As I mentioned, this was a long list. It was hard to cut it down to
Yeah.
3. What do you got as your number 3?
All right. So my number three, I deviated from it a little bit. Like this is best sandwich scene for me, not
Okay.
necessarily best sandwich, but I got the sandwich making scene in Kill Bill Volume 2.
What are
You
those,
got
ham and cheeses or something, or turkey
yeah,
and
it was
cheese?
like
Yeah.
ham and cheese or bologna or something, and it's like, but it's like the sandwich is being used itself as a condiment, so to speak,
That's a
to
metaphor.
accentuate like the entire like dynamic that's going on because it's kind of like the calm before the storm, right? Because on one hand you've got Beatrix played by Uma Thurman, and she's finally completed her quest of finding Bill, right? She spent a movie and a half trying to find this dude who did her so dirty, and then she finds out that her daughter still exists, so she's like going through this myriad of emotions of being happy and like over the top, overjoyed that her daughter, like she's staring at her daughter right now. And then she's also still filled with like this contempt and hatred, knowing that she's got to kill Bill. Bill is over there also like, okay, like I've been waiting for you. Like word has gotten around. I've been waiting for you. Here's your daughter. And it's sort of like when two warring generals meet and have tea before the war starts. Like,
Exactly.
and so he's sitting there and he's telling the story about the daughter, about BB killing her goldfish on accident, and just like how calmly, like it's no overt, like
Preach.
yeah, like it's not overt, like I'm about to kill you. He's not doing it aggressively. It's like so calmly and methodical, and they're having this conversation, but you feel the tension rising, and it's almost worse because of how calmly he's making the sandwiches. It's like when I was little and I would mess up in school and be bad all day, and then I'd come get my dad would pick me up, and my parents would be like, "Oh, how's your day? How was your day?" Knowing that they got the call, knowing I'm
You
getting
got
a
the
whooping when
call.
I get home,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, how was your day? Oh, really? Like having a nice conversation. We might even have dinner first, and then it's like, okay, go upstairs. You know what time it is, and it's like, oh, like
Yup.
yeah,
Ooh. Like they're disappointed and they want you to be able to like fess up to it. They're giving
yeah,
you the gun. Getting you the gun to load yourself. And I'm so happy because I'll just tell everybody, spoiler, I don't have any Quentin Tarantino on my list, which is maybe the only the second time I had no Quentin Tarantino. I was hoping, I had this sense, I was like, I can count on my boy MC32 to go with those sandwiches. It is such intense, slow dialogue, the way that Quentin Tarantino, I think, does better than anybody. And to your
Mm,
point, the sandwich and the making of the sandwich is just the medium for which that special sauce that he has with dialogue is set upon. So I'm with you 100%. That is a really, really good one. All right. So for me, now, this should be my number 3. I'm just going to give it an honorable mention because I already talked about when we talk about best pork dishes of all time, but that classic bacon, egg, and cheese from Birds of Prey with Margot Robbie, where they get real deep into it, and it is the main character of that scene. Respect for that one. But I had to go probably same as you. I don't know if this is the best sandwich, but the grilled cheese from Benny and June,
mm.
Johnny Depp. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Okay. So he's an out there character, a little bit touched, thinks he's Buster Keaton, and he makes grilled cheeses on an ironing board with an iron.
Mm,
Literally sears them with an iron. Tried it, doesn't work. Not good for a grilled cheese. It is an absolutely iconic moment in movie history for me personally, and the grilled cheese to me is a top 5 sandwich, full stop.
mm.
So I had to pay homage to Johnny Depp, to Benny and June, and to the grilled cheese with the ridiculous iron hack. Please don't try this at home, kids. Number 2,
All
Deuce, what do
right.
you got?
Number 2, I picked the low hanging fruit. I'm going with the Cubano sandwich from Chef. Um, I
I
mean,
also knew you were doing that one.
yeah,
I'm
we
I'm starting to read you now.
we've touched on Chef a couple of times, so I don't need to elaborate on it much. But like just watching John Leguizamo work his magic, and then watching John Favreau put his twist on it, and then as he's teaching his son how to properly toast the bread and what makes a great cubano, like that, that's one of those sandwiches that you're just like, man, I wanna try that.
I need some of that in my life. Yes, the fact that he's on the truck and teaching his son, that got me in the feels 100%. That's what I talked
Hmm.
about with Chef, the reason that I have some respect for that movie, even though so much of the storyline is completely ridiculous and
Right.
unbelievable. That moments with his son, and then the clip that he does, like the kind of Vine style clip where it's
Mhm.
1 second of all these different days on that trip, like that for sure got me in the feels. And knowing that Roy Choi is behind the scenes there making that Cubano fire,
Mhm.
that thing is legit. Like that's not stunt food. Like if I'm on cast and crew, I'm like, let me get that prop sandwich because I know that's the real deal right there, 100%. So that's a good one at number 2. I've mentioned this movie before. At number 2 for me, When Harry Met Sally,
Mm.
the pastrami on rye, because of a couple reasons. Number 1, that scene is super memorable. The sandwich is a little bit forgettable. So I had to kind of rationalize why I wanted it in. Pastrami on rye with egg salad, one of my all-time favorite sandwiches. And the fact that that scene is shot at Katz's Delicatessen, which is legendary, iconic, all-time, right, Jewish deli in New York. To me, Rob Reiner and whoever scouted that location made the right call. So the
Work.
fact that they have the iconic sandwich and the iconic location, even though it's Meg Ryan who steals the scene, obviously, in that whole deal, pastrami on rye. Respect. Tell me I'm wrong that that's not a top 5 all-time sandwich too. Come
Yeah.
on.
Legit.
Oof. Ooh. That is going. Okay.
All
Number
right.
1.
So my number one. So before I get to my number one, I also have an honorable mention. Now
Yeah.
this is because it's not top 5 sandwich per se, but again, and with most of these lists, I tend to have like one that's kind of like a fucked up kind of thing.
Outlier.
So yeah. So for me, the tuna with extra mayo sandwich from Undercover Brother, like because like, I
All
can't do
over it.
mayonnaise. I can't do mayonnaise. Like I can do flavored aiolis in certain applications, but just straight mayonnaise on sandwiches, it makes me gag, right? And so like I have traumas of like being in high school and having to go in. My guidance counselor, the only time that she could see me was during her lunch break, because she'd always be eating a bologna and mayonnaise sandwich, and I'd be like this close to her, and she'd be like, "No, get closer," and she'd have like
Ooh,
the mayo on the corner of her mouth and like
no.
the
No.
bologna mayonnaise breath, and
No,
so
no, no.
like so like wishing that I had a watch full of hot sauce and all kinds, but like watching that scene just brought back those same memories for me, and I'm like, but it was memorable enough for me, and I identified with it so much, so it's an honorable mention, but it doesn't actually make the list.
All right. Number 1
All
though.
right,
Let's hear
number
it. What do you
one
got?
though, number one for me is the bacon, egg, and cheese from Birds of Prey. That was my number one, because that sandwich legitimately makes me hungry when I watch it. Like you watch the scene,
Facts.
and every single time that I've watched it, I've wanted to eat it. Like you're seeing, because the camera pans to an up close of the griddle. You got the eggs being cracked, and you see them cooking. You see the bacon sizzling. You see them like put everything together. You see the cheese and the hot sauce on it, and you're like, "Dog, I'm hungry." And especially like even when I was rewatching it, like talking about it right now, I'm hungry. And then when it's it's cut in half and she's ready to take a first bite, and then she gets stopped by Rosie Perez, and that is like food blue balls right there. Like I felt like I was robbed of eating. I felt like
Hey,
I was personally robbed of eating that sandwich.
like
And
I
so
wanted to
like
see that bite.
yeah,
I need
yeah,
that first bite. Even
yeah,
if it's
yeah,
that's exactly right. Yeah, they did it out. We got to find out. Anybody knows who was doing the culinary production, the culinary direction of that movie, that scene? Because respect, you
yeah.
nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Another iconic New York sandwich
Mm,
for sure. So, okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right. For me, number 1 is the BLT with fried egg and cheese from Spanglish. Ooh,
okay.
Adam Sandler, that even more maybe than Birds of Prey, because Margot Robbie really narrates the hell out of it. So they're co-stars, the bacon, egg, and cheese, and Margot Robbie. But that sandwich is the absolute star of that scene. Adam Sandler, the ingredients, the hands that are in it, those are just supporting cast for that. And you could tell the reverence they had for, let me show you what you've talked about a lot, where these high-end chef movies, it always comes back to something humble, simple, and straightforward, fucking delicious. And the BLT with the fried egg, with the yolk crack, the cheese on there, absolutely on a level. And that's Thomas Keller, who did the food production and direction of that one. So you knew it was going to come at that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, little Easter egg for people, if you haven't seen Spanglish, is Phil Rosenthal plays his sous chef in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Phil Rosenthal, who's got really famous for creating Everybody Loves Raymond, also big time foodie and has a show called Somebody Feed Phil. Definitely check that out if you're into kind of travel and food type shows. He's hilarious. And it is a really, really well done show. He travels all over the world, all over the country, Bourdain style, and has his little shtick, which is super awesome. So definitely check that out. That is my number one. Okay, let us know how we did on our list. You can see we're 16 minutes in the show. We went deep in the bag. That is a very important category, everybody. 100%. Okay, we got to get into this last episode of season 2 of The Bear. Let's watch a little clip before we get into it.
What do you think? It's really something. It's beautiful. I am blown away. I'm really glad to hear you say that. Thank you so much. Your daughter is very important to us. Very special to me, too. Just want to let you guys know that drinks are on their way. You're too kind, but I'm really a soda guy. I don't drink. We are well aware, sir. The Bear Pop Service, Mr. Brown?
So I'm scared you want to switch it. No? No. Yeah.
Key? Hey, come here, please. Jeff, can I get caviar? I want you to help save with tickets. I'll have Josh cover your station, okay? Yeah.
I don't know what Josh wants.
What does that mean?
It means I don't know who the fuck you are.
Okay, you stay on your station. I'll cover Josh's station. Margot!
Hi.
Sid, tickets, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chef.
Okay, when they come out, oh, sorry.
I need a cutting board.
When they come out, just put them to the corresponding place. So that's where
Yes, sir.
that'll go there. Yeah.
Hey, look, you're with me all day, and I just want to say something.
Everything has been fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Forget
Great. I will. Where you going, bro?
Yo, what a little sports show.
Behind.
There it is. I got some chills a little bit. Just the sounds of a restaurant, like, bring you to a place. Sometimes it's a scary place. I think for guys like us that have been in the trenches, sometimes it feels really good. Sometimes you don't know what you feel. You just feel a lot intensely. So I definitely got a lot of that from this episode. All right. As always, we are going to drop our ratings out of 10. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
9.6. Woo!
I knew it. I knew it. This is low score for me. Low score for me.
Okay, so
I just
will
showed
say
you the
before
whole
you get
reason that
into
I
it-
like this show. Let's get into it. We're about to fight right now. Let's go.
Okay,
9.6.
okay.
This is your highest. This is not my lowest score, but this is your highest score of the entire season. And this for me is mid-low for sure.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right,
Okay.
get it.
Okay.
Defend
So-
yourself.
There are things that I saw that I was like, oh, Jensen isn't gonna like this. But so
That guy. 9.6. Let's go.
So one of the things that I liked was the fact that it's another shit hits the fan episode. And I liked seeing there's certain elements that I really loved seeing. Like I loved seeing the dynamic where, mom decides that she's not gonna come in and walks away. She dumps that all on what's his name?
Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, how's that going to change? Because we were expecting a big situation with mom, but then you realize that you don't need her in the episode because Carm has turned into his mom. And so basically, but it's also the fact that he was trapped in the walk-in. It's kind of like the bomb squad putting the dome over the bomb. So the bomb is exploding, but it's contained in its own little shell. So if he would have been out in the kitchen, that shit would have been horrible. But because he was contained in the walk-in, he had to deal with all his own shit by himself, basically.
Do you like that he had to get introspective in that way?
I do, because there's been so many times where I've experienced, I'm sure you have, where instead of that, the chef takes all that shit out on the entire staff.
Yeah, I've
and
done
especially
that.
and especially when you're talking about the first couple of days where tension and stress is high already, and then you've got the chef whose internal shit and all of their stuff that has nothing to do with you or anybody else on the staff is all boiling over and mixing into it, and they're taking it out on everybody. And I feel like those things, and like some of the stuff that he was saying in terms of like how, it's not worth it, for he doesn't deserve to enjoy things and stuff like that, like, and make desirable experiences or whatever. I feel like that's what a lot of chefs feel like in some way, and it's what has made the industry shitty to work in, because they feel like there's
That's
no
true.
joy
Yes.
to be had
Yeah.
or felt in the kitchen, and it's not worth it. You're not there for that. And so then for people, it's very hard to like find love in that and to keep cooking in a scenario like that. So I feel like it was dope for him to have to deal with that and on his own in the walk-in, and then also see Richie step up and be like, okay, we're gonna get out of this shit. I'm gonna help you guys. Like, I'm gonna expo. Like, we're gonna get these. I mean, it kind of felt almost reminiscent of an episode
48, they got 48 menus out in 5 minutes on the clock. Come on, bro.
No.
Come on.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Come
that's cat. Yeah. I feel you.
All right, let me hit you with a couple things, then come back
Yeah.
at me, because I feel
Okay.
where you're coming from.
Mhm.
The biggest problem that I had was they tried to jam all of the drama that is an actual restaurant service into this episode, right? Because they haven't had a restaurant to this point. Lots of
Mhm.
other drama and things that they were able to squeeze in, but they made a specific point to be way less drama filled in the restaurant scenes that we did have. We have the bromance of Marcus and Luca,
Mhm.
right? And then we have Richie at Ever doing the 3 Michelin star. And there was a little bit of drama, but it was more about showing how high level that was and showing how Richie was ascending to the level of respect and ability that it would take to be in that kind of environment. So a different type of drama than the kind of self-sabotaging, self-defeating, infighting that has been kind of, I think, the calling card of the Bear, maybe mostly from season 1 as we transitioned into season 2. That for me was a problem. Carmy stuck in the walk-in? What the fuck, man? Like, that is one of those ridiculous sitcom, isn't that convenient type things for me, because I felt like there were so many other ways that they could accomplish what you're talking about. The fact that they had to jam him in the walk-in, to me, felt like you're removing the quote unquote main character of this show to then have them have a completely divergent experience from everybody else in the restaurant. Everybody else in the restaurant worked together to find some kind of transformation. And for me, you loved it. For me, the fact that he had to do that without them felt like the opposite of what I've loved about the Bear, of Carmy especially, creating maybe chaos, but a space where cool shit happened and where people found something out about themselves. So that to me was problematic in that. There was also something else, and then let's banter a little bit about this. The fucking dude smoking meth in the back alley. Like, that was just, well, again, what are we doing here? Like, we waited all the way until the last episode to address substance abuse in kitchens in the restaurant. I know they've done it with Mikey, kind of
Mhm.
separated from. But it's one of the things I've been surprised that they didn't dig more into substance abuse, into sexual abuse. Like there's a couple things there where I was like, there's maybe a need for talking about that stuff a little bit more. But the fact that that dude is smoking out in the alleyway and then Marcus kind of busts him and then they have a conversation like, is that okay? Do I like fire the guy? It did not sit right with me at all. That scene.
Uh,
So those are the things that I had a problem with.
I thought that shit was hilarious, but also because
That
I've
shit
been
was
there.
hilarious.
Um, I've been there. Excuse me. Excuse me. Allergy season. Anyway, I've been there where I'm like, where the fuck did the dude do? Like, you look up,
Sure.
and the station is vacant, and there's tickets coming in, and you can't find the dude anywhere. You go back, and it's like he's kicking a beer can out of his way in the alley, or you find him in the walk-in, and he's like whatever.
Mhm.
I feel like that is such a real scenario, and I don't necessarily feel like that it needed a lot of in-depth. I mean, like you can touch back on it later and stuff like that, but I feel like in the moment, in service, that's one of the things that you have. Like we're busy. One of the dudes is out doing drugs in the fucking walk-in. Like, are we gonna fire him right now? How badly do we need him? Can we just shift things over, kick him off, or do we wait, get that body back in here, finish service, and then reprimand him later?
Yeah, see, that's
And
part of it. He disappeared, and then if you look at the timeline, the guy was outside for like 15 minutes. Then they send Marcus outside during that 5 minutes, which doesn't make sense. Then he's out there. He's like, "Is that meth?" And it's like, "Why are you being weird about this?" The whole scene was weird. Then he comes
mm,
back in and has this awkward conversation. I get you. If the guy walks back onto the line and he's like doing the sniffling and all this, and then he like fucks up a T-bone, that makes sense to me. That's the reality of the restaurant. In that moment, when they are taking something that I think is so crucial for us to have a deep conversation about when it comes to that kind of substance abuse, in those moments, they made it a caricature. They
mm,
like made it laughable. And I think what they've done is they've gone at that stuff head on so often. And they did this like sidebar. Oh shit, we have to include it in season 2. We can't skip over it. Here's the most ridiculous way we can imagine doing that. And that to me felt dishonest in the way that the Bear, Christopher Storer, this was written by Kelly Galuska, like they have gone about every one of the things that are hard for us to deal with in restaurants. They have not shied away from them, and they've been very thoughtful, and they've given them space to be able to explore those things. And in this moment, I felt like they dropped the ball in that. That was for me. Now, let me
mm,
give you a couple pros because there were some
mhm,
really good things about this episode. I just had to give it a low score because I think the misses were such big misses. Number one, Donnie Medea in the house again. I absolutely love seeing Donnie Medea. Again, the fact that what Donnie Medea with the VEC and the Publican have had an influence on the Bear, the fact that the original owner of the original Beef, right? No, Mr. Beef, which is the location that they've used for the
mhm,
original Beef and the Bear, was also a mentor who got Donnie Medea into it. I love all the storylines there, so that was really great. The scene that we showed with Sweeps looking real sharp. I
mhm,
hate the servers just standing there quietly on the side waiting to be told what to do. I just don't like that part of fine dining at all. Uh, I like the way that they use the single camera action. Christopher Storer, who directed this episode, where they went from the energy of the back of house to the energy of the front of house without a break, without a reset of scene. Right. So I like that where you kind of went in and out of this vacuum of sound.
mhm,
That was really cool to me. So I really appreciated that about this episode as well. Pete, Chris Witaske had a big role in this. I was kind of bummed we didn't see more of him. He's kind of that bumbling idiot who like
mhm,
loved restaurants and loved Carmy and wanted to talk chefs in season 1. He didn't get a lot of play. He was very emotional and kind of like emotional support animal in this one
mhm,
a little bit. But I always root for him because Chris Witaske, the actor, is a friend of a friend. So even way back to those, you can't stop, Progressive can't stop you from becoming your parents, where he was like the dad in all those commercials. If you've ever seen those commercials,
mhm.
he's one of those actors that's in a bunch of those. So I always remember rooting for that guy because I heard about him that way. So those are a couple of the things that I really liked. The food, Courtney Store, again, your food looks fire. So many movies, so many TV shows that we see, the food looked good 3 hours ago, 12 takes ago, right? And it no longer looks good. The food all looked good. The only thing that looked like it had been sitting there a little too long was the T-bone bones that they had standing up. I was like, yeah, bro, those have been sitting there a
Yeah, I was
minute.
thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Those have been sitting there way too long. But really, the bucatini look good. The prawns look good. I think they did a good job with the food once again. So Courtney Store, shout out there. And then for you, Luca, Marcus, I know you loved that dynamic because you had a similar experience. The note that Luca sent saying, make it worth it. Love that. Love that. That was a really, really good touch. So those were a couple of things that I liked about it from this episode. What else you got? What else we need to make sure I know about this season
One thing
finale?
that was like, I was conflicted because, well, it was annoying to me, but it was annoying because it was real, and I've sat through and watched that, and actually caused one of my few freakouts is when Marcus is trying to get Sydney to like talk about this personal shit in the middle of the service, like on the line, and like gets upset over it to where like he starts yelling about it, and
says, why are you
like,
ignoring me?
Yeah, and so many people don't know how to pick a moment, and like how to read that this is not the time for that. And like I'm a very, very calm individual in the kitchen, and one of the few freakouts that I've had is when a couple of my cooks were like talking about personal shit in the middle of service, and it's like not the time for it. And I'm trying to call out tickets, and we're trying to manage and mitigate the rush, and you're talking about this stuff that has nothing to do with what we're doing right now, and I lost it. And so like seeing that again, like at first I was like, oh, this is kind of dumb that they would do that, but then I was like, well, no, that shit happens.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Hey, look, she wasn't calling back those all days. He asked for all days on those cannolis a bunch of times, and she was not calling them back. That would piss me off as well. You're on that expo station. Half your job is calling those all days, those 2x3x4s, man.
One thing I would say too, which we touched on this all season, we still have yet to see Sydney cook a successful meal. Like we go from her spitting out food and all that, like everything is so bad, and then because she's on the expo line, she's not cooking anything during service. So we literally have not seen her skills whatsoever improve. So at the end of this episode, I'm still like, are we sure this kid can cook? And I know that her dad was like, the food was amazing and everything, but then, and I was like, okay, well, that's validation, but then really, is it? Because she didn't cook any of it.
You hope that she did a lot of the prep, right? You think that she did a lot. She built sauces. She got
and that's like a lot of left up to interpretation and a lot of like fill in the blanks as you see fit type of situations. But that's one thing that I've noticed is that we've never actually.
I think they thought that the omelet was the redemption. And we talked about it like, what?
Right.
No. Chris thought she was going to do another one after that first one. So I think in their minds, and a lot of people's minds for some reason, they thought that omelet was that moment of redemption. For us, it's not. So they better get it in season 3. They better know that we still aren't sure if Sydney can cook at that level or
have her host a
all.
Barbecue or something. Like
something. Make some family meal. Let's go. So there's a couple of restaurant isms that I wanted to just like throw out there for everyone. I really didn't like the how is everything question that Richie was asking around the dining room. It's a big thing when you're talking about mind reading. How is everything? Everything is fine. Canned questions get canned answers. So to me, you got to ask really specific, really creative questions. Then they bring out the soda bar for Sydney's dad, and they're trying to do all these mind reading things, and Nat notices that the light is too high above Unk, and so they're trying to do those things. How is everything? Never ever ask that question in a restaurant. Be thoughtful. The kitchen door, why is there not an in and out door? Like if you have a door, you got to have an in and outside, otherwise somebody's getting smashed with that door going one way or the other. I don't care if it's glass, that's going to happen. And then did you notice this? Tina with the knives. We've seen 4 or 5 different knives in Tina's hand. This time she had the Klingon looking motherfucker.
Yeah, I was like, where did that come from?
Where the hell did that shit come from? So she's had, she's got like the Tobiko knife or whatever she's using for the fish. She's got that really, really nice Damascus folded steel one that she gets from Carmi. Now she's got some, I don't know, some meat carving Klingon knife. So
she borrowed that shit from Lord of the Rings.
Tina ain't messing around when it comes to the knife game, apparently. So, okay. Whew, man, 9-6 and a 6-8. I had a feeling we were going to be on different sides of this equation. I think we have the same read on the episode. I just think the things that I wanted to see out of it, they went the other way, and I think they went the right way for you. So for sure, though, that episode, there was moments where, again, I got all the feels. I just got all the feels I didn't want to have too many times in that one for me. So that's it. How did we do? Let us know. Are you closer to my 6-8, or are you way up there in the stratosphere at 9.6? That might as well be a 10. I don't know how you get much higher than a 9.6. That was good. All right. That is it for this episode. That was the season finale. Now, make sure next week we are going to give our ratings and reviews of the entire season, probably compare it to season 1 a little bit. So we'll get into that as well. But that is it for this episode. This was, once again, this is RIP11, top 3 best sandwiches, the Bear season 2 finale. We talked a little restaurant chaos, restaurants and pop culture, presented by Squared Sodas. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.